Hi guys, how are you? Today's video is going to be something I've never done before. It's the first. It's going to be a collaboration video with fellow filmmakers, and I think nothing is more inspiring than meeting filmmakers and exchanging thoughts. That's something I like to do, to not feeling alone in certain feelings that you experience on this journey. And today I'm going to collaborate with Sabrina Jones. Sabrina is a filmmaker I met through YouTube, and she also have her YouTube channel. I've been watching her video for a while now, and she always sharing her process of writing and learning. She put out a lot of short films constantly, and she always inspired me to stay creative. Be sure to go check out her YouTube channel. I think you will love it. And in this video, I'm going to answer 7 questions related to writing filmmaking from Sabrina, and she will also answering my questions on her channel as well. I will put a link down the description to her YouTube channel as well as the other half of the collaboration videos.
Hi Nani! I'm so excited to be collaborating with you. Thank you so much for collaborating with me. I'm excited to be on your channel. I've been watching you for a long time now, and I really admire you, and it's just crazy to be collaborating with you. It's kind of weird, but I'm super excited. Hi to everybody on Nani's channel. I am so pleased to meet you. My name is Sabrina. I'm a screenwriter, director, and filmmaker. I also have a YouTube channel very similar to Nani's where I talk about screenwriting and directing and filmmaking. So after you watch this video and subscribe to Nani, make sure you head over to my channel. I will be answering questions as well. And without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, Nani, so my first question for you is, what made you want to be a filmmaker / get into the film industry?
So this is going to be a super long story, and I'm going to try to make it short. I think the first time I realized that I want to be a filmmaker was when I was 12. Before that, I haven't really went to a theater much. I specifically remember when I was a kid, the only movie that I think I watched in theater at that time was Titanic in the theater, and that was a big of deal. After that, I remember I mentioned here and there that I want to go to a movie theater, but there was not many theater in the town I grew up. My father told me that theater is dead. Now everybody have TV and people just rent DVD watching film at home. So when I was 12, there was a film released called Hero. It's directed by Yimou Zhang. It's one of the biggest Chinese director, and at that time it was a big of deal in China because basically apparently it's the first time someone used enormous CGI involved into a film. It's an action drama. Technically, to me, I feel more like a drama with a lot of philosophical stuff going on in the film, and it was an incredible, beautiful film. Even today, I still keep watching it, and it's one of my favorite film. I would list that film on my top 10. I remember when I finished watching the film in the theater with all my relatives. Yes. I have all group of my aunts and cousins. We all went to the theater to watch that film together, and I was crying at the end of the movie. That I feel something is changed within me, that a perspective of life, whereas all the people around me were like, I don't know what's the story is about, it's kind of boring. So I was wondering, how could they not seeing what I see? And also the film just hit me in a way that made me, in that little age, realize that there are a lot of things that I worry and concern about compared to the world, how big it is. It doesn't really matter. And also, plus the film's aesthetic and all the CGI and stuff, and then made me first time thinking, I want to do the same thing. I want to create this feeling and then offer it to someone else. I want to somehow make other people feel what I feel by doing what the director just did to me. And then that's the first time I had thoughts about it. And since then, I started reading the bios about those actors and filmmakers, and then that helped me to be able to see a path of becoming a filmmaker. So I thought it was something totally doable. but because growing up in a little town with no film industry whatsoever, it was forbidden by my family, and I went to engineering school, even though there was back and forth of arguing with my parents about that how much I want to be a filmmaker. But I think I was not determined enough at that time. I remember preschool year, I have an entire year studying in a college. Then that year, I ditched a lot of class and then just watching film back to back. Like every day I watched 3 to 4 films for that entire year, hundreds of films. And I think that kind of started settling in of even more of what film is meant to me and how it starts shaping my worldview. And a lot of things I know. So this idea of wanting to be a filmmaker has always stayed with me. I was just too fearful to express it until a year before I graduated from college. I suddenly had a thought. I was in engineering school, by the way. I thought, if I'm doing engineering 30 years from now, how would I feel when I see other people's movie in the theater? And I feel those sense of strong jealousy and unfulfilled envy feeling. And then that's when I realized, if that's the case, I probably will be very miserable. Like life is meaningless, and I might be very depressed if that's the case. And then that's when I realized I have to pursue the filmmaking career, no matter how hard it is or how impossible it is, when everybody tell me it's impossible because I have no connection and nobody. That's when I finally confront my parents, and to them it was very hard to take because I spent 5 years trying to get an engineering degree, and now I was once again telling them I still want to be a filmmaker. At that time, I know I can't live in a miserable way. It's almost like as long as I'm pursuing this journey, even I don't make it, I wouldn't feel regret because I lived the way my heart wants to live.
My second question is, what do you think is the hardest thing about writing a screenplay?
Great question, and I think it's a difficult one as well. There is several things I find it's difficult in terms of writing a screenplay. I think the number one thing it used to be for me was self-management, actually, because I was growing up in an education system that it's always about assignment. I always do things what people tell me to do, learn what people assign me to learn. Managing myself becomes something that I have no knowledge of, and one day I throw me into this space of I need to creating a screenplay because there's no comparison, there's nobody held me accountable. It become a self-struggle, become a thing of figuring out how can I make myself to do this consistently, be able to achieve this long form of screenwriting process. At least for me, I was not always feel enthusiastic about writing. A lot of time you feel dreadful. You're sitting on a chair and just staring or going blank, or your mind just wandering all over the place. In the beginning, I gave myself a very difficult time about not being able to making progress because I thought making progress on writing is the word count, the page count is to moving forward physically. But gradually, after reading about writing, after watching so many interviews from fellow successful writers, that I realized no, the progress is always making internally as long as you care and thinking about the story. Everything that going on in the life, you are absorbing them and then work with the material that's already in your head. So thinking is writing. Staring is writing, wondering is writing. Since I have changed my mindset, I become not as hard on myself. I actually start feeling that I become more excited in terms of writing, and then start moving forward, let it flow, go with the pace that the story wants to go. And then when I feel ready, it's ready. So that was one of the things that took me several years to figure out, and then sometimes I still feel somewhat struggling with. And another thing I find it's very difficult writing, and it's one of the things that always make me stuck, is when the character struggles is too close to home. I think I mentioned in one of my video before, a lot of time we tend to write characters in a very passive way because we don't see ourselves clearly enough, and we attach our identity to the character. So the character doesn't see themselves as clear enough. The character is like a blur image of you, and in that way you'll not be able to see in any given situation what's your flaw, what's the character's flaw clear enough. You don't know what's the moral problem with the character or what the psychological need of the character. And then those things are very important in order to create a very proactive, interesting character, which means I need to basically think about, in any given situation, what is my flaw and what's my psychological needs. And somehow it's much easier to have the awareness of other people than have the awareness of self. Every time when I feel stuck, usually it's because I'm identified with that character a lot, and I can't see that character with distance because I can't see myself and have enough awareness yet. And then figuring that out is liberating, but usually take forever and a lot of crying and struggling.
My third question is, who is your favorite screenwriter and or director?
I have a lot of favorites in terms of screenwriters and directors, but I think the first one come to my mind in terms of screenwriter is Robert Altman. He is the writer-director of a film like Shortcuts, Nashville, and A Wedding. A Wedding is probably one of my favorite of his film. He always does this story of like 5, 6, 7 characters. He likes to do this kind of comedy, explore multiple character, kind of discuss the same thing by using those different characters. So yeah, he always does multi-character stories, and it's always extremely complex. It's almost like all his film is those kind of film that you can watch it over and over and over, and each time when you watch it, you discover something new. And my favorite director, there's several of them, but I think the film directed by Joe Wright, and usually I inspired so much by Joe Wright in terms of director. I think he's this kind of director that you feel very surprised that from a male's perspective that he can make a story of a female lead character in such a feminine way, and then he incorporates so many details into his story, and his story always gives you the feeling of mix in between of stage directing and film directing. And then speaking of that, that's one of the reasons I really like Ann Lee as well. A lot of Ann Lee's earliest story that you can see, they like to do those kind of thing that they just steady one shot and then they block the character within a room to be out the scene. When it's an important moment, the character walk towards the lens and then reveal certain emotions. Yeah, so Joe Wright and Ann Lee is probably the directors that inspired me the most.
Number 4, what is your biggest goal when it comes to working in the film industry?
That's a great question, and then it's a scary one. Somehow there's always some fear that I have attached to this question when people are asking me. I think it's because internally I dream big, huge, but because of my upbringing that teaching you be humble and always being told what I want is not achievable. And I'm not trying to judging anybody. I think my family also experienced the fear and then they worries for me. That's why they told me and worried me want too much and then not be able to get it, and then kind of protect me from the disappointment of life. But I think if I feel humble and I feel scared, my answer probably gonna be I want to be able to eventually the filmmaking can pay my bills so I can not worry about anything else but completely focusing on writing and creating new films, but that's actually not a true answer. What I want is I want to be able to impact as many people as possible. I want to change people's mind in a good way. I want a lot of people experience what I experienced from a conservative little town to be able to listen to my thoughts and then chasing something that everybody told me not to do. I want to liberate people. I start experiencing people express this to me after they watch my first feature film, and I feel that's the most fulfilling thing, and I'm very grateful. And now it's the question of how can I keep working and enhance my skill and expanding that to the world. Okay.
Number 5, what is your favorite genre to write?
I used to almost only love drama or dramedy, and then that's the thing I always like to write. I did try to do a fantasy short once, and then that was a big lesson. I thought I failed miserably, and now I'm thinking back that I learned so much from that experience. But recent years, I started develop a lot of interest in all kinds of different genre, from thriller, horror to comedy, and then I actually start having a development on a thriller as well. So I don't think I have one specific genre that I like the most now. I do find myself interested in this kind of a story of comparing different kind of character within the same theme. It's basically trying to find the similarity, the common of different people that come from different background, different upbringing, different race, different gender, just all kinds of different things. If you watch my first feature film, it's kind of like that too, even though it's all like Asian stuff, but it's like 3 different generations that's struggling with the same thing in a slightly different way. Those are the things I like to explore. I think it's a lot of to do with that me moving from China to the US, and then seeing in such a different culture, people actually want same thing, struggling with the same thing, and then that fascinates me. I want to express the idea of we are all the same, we are all in one, no matter where you grew up. I think that's one of the reasons I love the writer Robert Altman so much, because that's kind of what he does. He always exploring the same thing by comparing all the different characters, different journey, and that's always interests me.
Number 6 is, what is your biggest tip for an aspiring screenwriter or filmmaker?
I think one of the biggest thing I want to share with a fellow filmmaker is, even though this industry looks glamorous, looks very competitive, it seems to require a lot of efforts, a lot of money, a lot of so-called connections, but those are not true. The people who made it are the people who kept learning and writing and making films. They just keep going. They are the people who do more than they say, and nothing can make them give up. In this industry, we almost feel like we were rejected by this festival or that contest. But I think the truth is, at the end of the day, we are the only person have the power to rejecting ourselves. Actually, this is literally on my phone screen. I don't know if you can see Martin Scorsese quotes. I'm just gonna read it to you. It's not the most brilliant that excel in film. It's the most patient. So it is this kind of industry that you are the only one can rejecting yourself. I think the game of this industry is only challenging patience. It's just keep going, sticking around. As long as you keep learning and making new things and share it with your audience, you will make it.
And finally, what has been your favorite film project to work on?
I think right now the favorite project I'm working on is the musical that I'm writing. I think whatever I'm working on, it's always being my favorite project at the moment, because whatever I'm working on, usually it reflects what's going on in my personal life. Not exactly the same, but theme-wise or struggle-wise, it's kind of, I'm working on the story. It's like a self-therapy and trying to figure something that I'm struggling with out. Sometimes it feels very difficult and it's not that enjoyable, but it's just very rewarding once I figure out a certain point in the story, and somehow I reflect back and figure out certain points of my life, and it's very rewarding once I have those kind of breakthrough, and both story-wise and in my life. So for now, my favorite is always my current project. Alright, so these are the answers I have for the questions Sabrina gave to me, and be sure to go check out her video as well. She will be answering my questions. And if you are new here on my channel or new to Sabrina's channel, remember to subscribe and support. I will put all the link in the description down below. And be patient, be present, stay creative. I'll see you next week. Bye. Pew.